Joining me now is Jean-Paul Lebosnoyani, who picked up a round one KO victory over Jack Condon at Dana White's Contender Series and earned a UFC contract to boot. Jean-Paul, man, that was such an impressive win. I know there's a lot of people that are excited to see you make that official UFC debut, but just first tell me, what life has been like for you since, getting that huge win and getting the UFC contract.
Yeah, life has been good. I have to say, it's been really good. Obviously, getting the contract was a dream come true. Something that I've come really close to a few times in my career and have come up short. So I really know the value of, being here now and just super grateful to be here. But in at the same time, I've been like really training super hard and working very hard and kind of visualizing myself as already being here. So it's nice to have those three letters, a part of like, what I'm doing, but at the same time, it's been a long time coming.
I like that you said, visualizing yourself in this position. I try and adopt that into my day-to-day life too, and just kind of see myself where I want to be. You hear a lot of fighters too, like Conor McGregor in the past, that talks about visualization. How much do you use that in your day-to-day, and how important is that to you?
Yeah, I think visualizing and manifesting is something that's, very, very big in my life. I truly believe that like you have to align yourself with where you want to be in life, and you have to believe that, you can be there as if you're already there. And in the process of doing that, it's really hard because, you kind of feel like, is this ever going to happen? But, with something like being a UFC fighter, I've really sort of leaned into it and trusted the fact that, whatever you put your mind to, if you can believe it, you can do it in real life. So everything starts, up here, and then it all sort of unfolds after that.
Yeah, the older that I'm getting, the more I realize that life is so mental. That's where it starts first, right up between the ears. Tell me, man, I know you've been in a lot of big fights already. You're surrounded by a bunch of killers all the time, so you're used to getting that, the good sparring sessions. Iron sharpens iron. But when you do fight for Contender Series of the UFC, you hear about like the octagon jitters, those nerves. Was it different for you making that walk? I mean, I know it wasn't in front of like a huge crowd, but you had a lot of support there. Everyone is watching on ESPN Plus. What was it like making the walk in beforehand?
Yeah, I used to get pretty nervous in my fights earlier in my career, but the way that I've been preparing for my fights now, it's almost like the fights are easy compared to, some of the sparring sessions I have. There's this guy that, not a lot of people know about. His name is Levon Chokeli. He is from Georgia, and he is one of those guys that's like he definitely should be in the UFC, and he's gonna be in the UFC very soon. I think he's on that like short notice list. Um, but I did all my rounds with him leading up to this fight, and sparring with him is scarier than sparring with or fighting anyone I've ever competed against. So when I walked out there, that was a big part of my confidence. Working with a high level guy like him, I was just like, there's this guy's not on his level, and I've had way tougher fights. I mean, tougher sparring matches than this fight, and honestly, I feel like. In the night, like on Tuesday night, I felt nerves, but they were good nerves, they were nerves that keep you sharp and keep you ready. It was nothing that like felt sort of debilitating or like I was gonna crumble under the pressure or anything like that. It was like it was a good feeling. It was like I'm ready for this, I'm prepared. And I think I thrive in those environments, and that's why I'm excited for my debut. I want a crowd, I want a big arena, because I know that that's my element.
Mhm. How did you have so many people there come fight night to support you? Because it seemed like you were in your backyard, maybe like of your house or something, with how many fans were there supporting you?
Yeah, it honestly it reminded me a lot of my amateur fights where you have your family and your hometown and everybody come and support you. Since I moved to Vegas, I've really made a lot of friends here, and everybody at the PI has been so supportive. And a lot of my teammates are UFC fighters, and everybody came out to support. So it was definitely a great feeling, having everybody there, wanting me to win, wanting me to do well. So I've really kind of created a good support system for myself out here.
Very cool, man. Well, it was very apparent that the people in attendance were cheering for you. As
Yeah.
like the commentator said, I don't think I've ever heard that loud of a pop at Contender Series. Obviously, you're kind of known for your ground game. Your jiu-jitsu is really high level. Jack is, big striker, a lot of power. Was the game plan going in to strike with him a little bit and then get it to the ground, or did you kind of have that mindset that you want to kind of beat him at what he's best at here and get a highlight reel finish?
Yeah, there's definitely that sort of side to me that it's like, oh, I want to beat you at what you're good at. And if all else fails, I can take it to the ground, and that's where I'm really, I have my specialties. But every fight starts on the feet. So that's where I'm going to try to win. Um, at any given point, I'm always trying to win the fight wherever I'm at. So when we touched gloves and he was standing in front of me, that was sort of my mentality. Wanted to see, what I could do on my feet and kind of just show the world that, I'm very well rounded. I've put a lot of work, obviously, my entire life with jiu-jitsu and with wrestling. But in the last couple years, I've put a lot of time in my striking. And since I started working with my striking coach out here, Mateus Nakash, we've made a lot of improvements. And I think after that fight, my confidence on the feet has definitely gone up quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to taking the fight wherever it goes when it comes to my debut.
I mean, it was a quick fight, so there's really not a whole lot of tape to dissect or anything. I watched it back, and I was just trying to think from my perspective, watching you, if I was going to critique anything, like, are there any adjustments? Did you do anything in the fight that you're like, oh, I should have done this or that? Like, or was it pretty much perfect fight for you?
Yeah, I think the first like minute or so, or like 30 seconds, I definitely felt a little excited. I was excited to get in there and to get in the paint and kind of throw. But after the first exchange, I was like, wait a minute, I need to go back to the game plan and make some reads before I start you know start to bang. So
Hmm.
yeah, I had a moment sort of clarity in the fight where I was excited, and then I was like, wait a minute, let's dial it back a bit. So yeah.
Okay, well, it was a heck of a performance, my man. And one thing I noticed too was, I mean, obviously you came into the fight in very, very good shape. He just looked bigger than you.
Oh
Was
yeah.
that very noticeable? Like even beforehand, did you feel like he was just like a bigger guy and he might have like a reach or size, strength advantage? Is that something that crossed your mind going in?
Yeah, 100%. I remember seeing him at weigh-ins and I was like, "Oh, like, he's not that big, like he looked huge in the tape that I watched of him leading up to the fight and in the camp. But when I saw him in person, I was like, "Oh, he's not that big." And then come fight night, he rehydrated and I was like, "Wow, this guy is humongous." Um, but all my fights at welterweight, the guys that I fought have been way bigger than me. So I kind of had that confidence going in of like, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And I'm fully aware that I'm essentially a 55er fighting at 70. And I like that because I have a speed advantage. And, once I get a hold of you, it's apparent that I'm a lot stronger than my size kind of shows. So, uh, yeah, when I was in there facing him though, I was like, this guy's huge.
Yeah, he's a big boy, and he's from my neck of the woods. I'm from New England, so I've
Yeah.
seen Jack fight. I know this is a signature win, man. Really tough guy, and to do it the way that you did, I think it says a lot about your potential and what you can do in the UFC. So you mentioned that just like with making 170 versus fighting at 55, is that like a done deal? Like you're gonna fight at welterweight moving forward, or is there still kind of like, well, we'll see, maybe I'll go down to 155? Is that discussions that are happening with your team?
Yeah, my team gives me a lot of crap for fighting at 170, but I am 100% going to be fighting at welterweight for the rest of my career. I feel like just prime at that weight. I'm aware that I'm not the biggest guy, but I feel really good there, and I can do the entire camp with a clear mind and to really just focus on the fight and preparing for the fight, opposed to making weight. Because I've been there in the past, and it just sort of makes the whole experience of fighting not fun. And I'm really here to have a good time.
Yeah, and cutting weight sucks, right? Like, let's just be honest. That's not that's not anything that you really want to do. How big do you get? Like, do you get north of 190?
Yeah, I probably walk around at like 195. That's what I'm sitting at right now. So it's not an easy cut by any means for me. It's a difficult cut to get to 170. But comparing it to getting to 155,
Yeah.
like it's not even in the same conversation. So it's still definitely a challenge, like I cut weight. And you can ask my team, they all see it. Um, it's just more so like the build up to the fight, I can just focus more on, what's important.
How much time do you spend in the sauna when you are cutting weight before you have to kind of tap out and be like, I need a break?
Um, well, I've been doing weight cuts obviously for a long time, and I actually am sort of like the weight cut guy for all my teammates. So I help everybody with their weight cuts. You know, uh, my teammate Ozzy Diaz, he has been in the UFC for a year now, and I've learned a lot from the specialist that he works with when it comes to cutting weight. So there's a lot of like preparation you have to do in order to make sure your body knows how to sweat in the heat, and also that you don't panic under the heat, like when you're in a heat environment. So leading up to the fight, I do a lot of sauna like preparation without water, doing multiple rounds of that, just getting my body sort of acclimated to that sort of environment. And you know, I think that's something that young fighters can really sort of like explore and learn about, because it really does make the process a lot easier. And you kind of know what to expect, all the feelings to expect, and yeah. So it kind of takes time and experience, but there's a lot of like really good information out there, on Instagram, or even like ChatGPT will help you out. So yeah,
Yeah, I could have used you this morning. I was in the sauna for about 20 minutes and I started to panic and I jumped out. So it's a story for another day.
yeah.
I try to do as much sauna as I can, but it's fascinating to me how much weight you guys can cut and do it regularly. The discipline it takes. It blows my mind. I want to go back a little bit too, Jean Paul. Tell me, you have two losses as a professional. What did you learn from those losses and how did you grow? How did you become a better fighter from those setbacks?
Yeah, so my first loss, I got TKO'd. I was doing really well in the first round, but I was just kind of like overzealous with my pressure and with my striking, and eventually like it got me caught because I was so focused on the offense that I had really no defense in mind, and I got caught with an overhand, and so that really kind of made me realize that like even when you're winning and you have the guy on the fence, like you still have to be defensively sound. So that was the lesson that I took from the first loss. And then with the second loss, it was really a combination of a lot of things. It was for the LFA title, I went down to 155, and that was really like a very brutal cut for me. And I had no mental energy left for the fight. I felt like I'd already accomplished what I set out to do by making weight. And when the fight rolled around, I was kind of just like, oh, like, like let's do this. But there was really no like passion or drive to win there. And then from the technical standpoint, uh, when it comes to that fight for the LFA title, it was kind of the same. I was very emotional and just focusing on offense, just go, go, go. And after that fight, I really kind of like looked in the mirror of like who I was being coached by and the approach and the game plan. And that led to a group of my teammates. We kind of banded together, creating our own team called the Cobra team. And we sort of changed the approach to preparing for fights and really sort of combined all of our skill sets together, and broke down film, came up with game plans, and it was really like fun preparing for fights, and it gave me a lot of confidence knowing sort of like what is the path to win, how do I beat this person, using my skills and my strategy. And like when you know what you want to do in the fight, it gives you a lot of confidence and clarity.
So you're no longer in Cali. You're in Vegas now full time?
Yeah, I go back and forth as I can because, California is my home. Like I love being by the beach and being in the sun and getting in the ocean. So I go back as much as I can. But in terms of like fight camp and training, I'm here pretty much full time in Vegas.
Okay. What part of Cali did you live in?
So I was born and raised in Hermosa Beach, California.
Okay.
That's my hometown.
Nice. Yeah, I lived out like Culver City area, Venice for like
Yeah.
five years. I loved it out there, but this is, 15 years ago now. So I'm sure a lot has changed. I don't know how much, but I know the traffic still has got to be brutal, right? Like just
Yeah.
getting if you got to go 15 minutes down the road, sometimes it might take you an hour.
Yeah, and that's what was so difficult in California is as a fighter, you sort of have to piece your training together. You can't really get everything all in one place. You have your jiu-jitsu academy, you have your MMA academy, you have your strength and conditioning, you have where you live. And in one day, you could drive like up to 2.5, 3 hours just trying to piece things together. And you really have no time to rest. So that's been the big thing here in Vegas and training at the PI is like everything is all in one place. So, there's time to rest in between sessions, to take naps, and to feel good going into the later sessions during the day.
Yeah. What hobbies do you have outside of MMA? Do you like to do anything, any other sports to kind of keep yourself active when you're not training?
Yeah, 100%. I'm a big yogi. I love doing hot yoga. I like to think that yoga is shadow boxing for jiu-jitsu. Holding some of these poses, being in uncomfortable positions, it sort of trains your muscles and your mind to you know, be comfortable in the uncomfortable. So I try to do as much hot yoga as possible when I'm not training, obviously. And I think it's sort of a good yin to yang ratio of, the crazy sparring sessions to then being, with yourself and kind of just battling with yourself. It sort of balances me. So I love doing that.
And tell me a little bit about your father and your relationship with him inside of like training and when you guys are getting your work in versus outside, just him being a dad. Like, how does that differ?
Yeah, so my father was my coach from 0 to about 17, 18 years old. And he was kind of like my foundation for everything. He taught me jiu-jitsu, he taught me striking. But the father and son sort of dynamic in combat sports and really in any sort of sport can be very difficult. Um, so eventually I had to sort of like branch off on my own and start, finding things out and figuring things out on my own. But I owe a lot of my foundation to my father. But now at this point in my career, I really just look to him as like my father, not so much as my coach. Um, but yeah, I like knowing that he started me off in this and that I'm sort of doing it on my own now.
It's very cool, man. I tell you, for how old is your dad?
I think he's like 50 something,
Okay,
something
so
like
he's
that.
he's still super young. Yeah, I don't have
He
my
might be
dad.
he might be older than that.
Okay. Well,
I might get
that's
a beating for this for sure.
Well, he's still young. That's all that
Yeah.
really matters. I lost my dad 7 years ago, and it still stings. So, you know, hang on to that relationship. Spend as much time with him as you can. I'm jealous of people that still have their dad around because he was like my hero. So
Mm.
I just thought it was cool listening to them talk about him and obviously what he's done in BJJ, and it's just really cool story to see you here and now. Let's talk a little bit real quick just about the UFC welterweight division and you being the newest member now. How do you feel like you're going to stack up against these guys? And obviously, there's so many killers at 170. Do you feel like, regardless of who they throw you in against, your skill set is going to be able to hang with a lot of these veteran fighters?
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna back myself 100%. And I think that, the timing of me entering the UFC is like, I believe in, the universal timing of things. And, I wouldn't be here if I wasn't supposed to be here. So, I trust my manager, Jason House. He's really helped guide me in my career. And, I truly believe that I'm here in the right time. And, you know, I look at myself as a sort of empty cup kind of martial artist. I know that I have a lot of skills. and that I'm world class in a lot of areas of martial arts, but I'm here to learn. There's still a lot I have to learn. And being in the PI and being around some of these fighters here, I see that like I'm very motivated by these guys, and I have a long way to go, but um, I'm gonna say yes to whoever they give me.
Yeah. Who do you think wins the title fight with JDM and Islam?
Oh, um, I I think like I was mentioning before, every fight starts on the feet, and JDM is a very well-rounded martial artist. I think his boxing is very high level. So I think given that it starts on the feet, I think he has the advantage there. And I know that Islam will strike with guys, like obviously like if he gets you to the ground, it's going to be like nothing you've ever felt before. But the fact that he likes to sort of test his striking might be like a reason why it kind of like goes more towards Jack.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch that fight. Uh,
Yeah, me too.
Two more questions for you, bud, and we'll get you out of here. This first one, real hypothetical. It's, hopefully it'll happen down the road for you, but obviously you got some work to do to get to a point before you crack that top 15, top 10, and, ultimately one day hopefully get a title shot. But let's just say you got matched up with JDM tomorrow. How realistically right now, like how do you think that fight would go? How good would you do right now?
Um, it's a good question. I think honestly, right now, like I think I have the skills to beat everybody, to beat anybody in the world. But to be honest, I think I still have a lot to learn before I can compare myself with those guys. So I'd like to think, I could get him to the ground and maybe snatch up a submission, but he is the best in the world right now. So I'm gonna give my respect to him, and yeah.
Okay,
I would
I love
say
it.
I would say I would say JDM takes it.
Fair enough. Right,
Now.
right.
Maybe in like 2, 3 years, I have a different answer, but I'm a very realistic person.
Well, I love the transparency and the honesty from you right now. I just thought it was kind of a neat question to kind of see what you thought,
Yeah.
where you stack up with the best of the best this moment. Last question from me, John Paul. Time frame. When would you like to make that UFC debut? Are you hoping that you get a full camp, or if they throw a short notice fight at you, are you going to jump at it? What's your mindset as far as that and the time frame?
Yeah, my mindset, something my dad instilled into me when I was, very young is a fight is like a burglar. You have to be ready to defend yourself at all times if someone breaks into your house. It's not like, oh wait, Mr. Bad Guy, give me a full camp and then you can break in. I live my life in camp. I was sparring the very next day after my fight. And I've been essentially following. I'm actually doing more now than I do in camp. When I get into camp, I actually dial it back a little bit just so I'm a little more recovered. So I'm ready at a moment's notice. I'm gonna leave that in my manager Jason House's hands. I trust him, and I would love to get in there by the end of this year. Hopefully in a big arena with a big crowd. But ultimately, like, whatever he thinks and whatever the UFC thinks, I'm gonna trust, and I'm gonna take that opportunity.
Well, I can't wait to see you make that UFC debut, man. It's definitely been a pleasure interviewing you here for the first time. Hopefully, Iridium will set us up. We can do a pre-fight interview before that highly anticipated debut. But again, thanks for the time. Before we do sign off, though, I want to give you the floor. If you have just anything you want to plug, any sponsors, anything like that, the floor is yours, my man.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be here without the Cobra team. My coach, Mateus Nakash, the the people at Hybrid Jiu-Jitsu, Hanato and Raquel Canuto, they've really helped level up my grappling. And then my wrestling coach, Jesse Doyle. It takes a village to get here. I definitely did not get here on my own. So, I'm grateful for all the people that have believed in me and supported me to get here, in this moment.